Books teach us, they inspire us, they challenge us, and they expand our horizons. Books contain the best thoughts of the greatest minds in history, but the problem is, there are millions to choose from. So what should you invest your time reading? What should you spend your money on? How do you sort through all the bullshit and find the good shit? You let the superior men do the work. Matt and Jay take the best books, pick the most important points, and distill them down to a concentrated 30-minute podcast. We help you find the books you need to read and why you need to read them. You may even learn something. So take out your coffee, tea, a glass of wine, or a good IPA. Sit back, relax, and enjoy. Welcome to the Superior Men Bookcast. And welcome back to the Superior Men Bookcast. I am your host, Matt, with my fellow host, Mr. Jathan. Say hi, Jay.
Hi, Jay.
Okay. Today, guys, we're going into a book that we have read. We read. I don't know. I've read this book probably a couple times.
Yep.
And I'm sure, Jay, you've probably read this book daily. But
this book is one of those books that I've definitely read multiple times. And yeah, it's the kind of book that, again, like all the books that we have here on the Superior Men Bookcast, you should read it twice. But most of our books, like 2 times, pretty good. This is one of the ones you probably could do 3, 4, or 5 times.
Yeah, it's one of those ones you could pick up every couple of years, really easy. So what book are we talking about? We're talking about How to Win Friends and Influence People, written by Dale Carnegie. So this book was published, 85 years ago, roughly, right? So 1936. So
officially back in the day.
Yeah, which according to Dane Cook, that was a Wednesday. Just a fun fact. So let's talk real quick. What is this book about? So this book defined and created self-help. So if you don't know anything, if you're like, oh, I really want to do better with myself, you're pretty much whatever author that is has Dale Carnegie to thank for it.
Yeah, he's like the great grandfather of self-help. Like any pop psychology, that's going to go back to Carnegie. Any of your success tapes, back when people listened to actual tapes, that would be that. Anthony Robbins would be nothing without this guy.
Yeah.
Stephen Covey, Oprah would, like, a huge chunk of what Oprah is and what she did was to take Carnegie's concepts and unleash them onto the world.
So Dale Carnegie was the first one. You get a car. You get no. So it's really it's such a nice positive book, and it's really looking about how basically you take the nature of how people really are, and you use that to create friendships. So you're setting out there, improving your skills with people. Becoming more successful, having more money, more opportunities, increased social networking. You're more productive at work, happier, better connections with people, stronger intimate relations, better relations with family and friends, more harmony with neighbors and your community. Sounds pretty crappy. Really, it's a great book. And really, Jay, who's going to benefit from this book?
I would say we're going to get the people that want to upgrade their social skills are probably the key. That's what you really want. Do you want to get better with having friends, or do you not have friends, or do the friends that you have kind of suck? This is going to help. But ancillary to that is, if you want more money, really networking is a big part of it.
Yeah.
Do you want to be able to, and this is kind of one of our keys here with all the Superior Men stuff, do you want to see the world as it actually is? And that is a big part. Carnegie really kind of dives into why people are motivated to talk to other people and connect with other people. And so he teaches how you can use that. Who won't like How to influence and influence people?
It's somebody who's just like, well, this book was written, 80 years ago, so what does it have to do with my life right now? Honestly, I think that's probably the biggest hang up for it. The other thing that I could see is people not liking is there's some topics, which we'll get into, but there's some topics that I think could turn people off. For me, like it did for me for one specific one. But so what about this book? Easy to read, difficult to read? What? Where would you put that?
Oh, definitely easy. Easy. Designed for anybody, written for everybody.
Yeah, and it is a relatively quick read. So the print version, 285 pages, we'll say 6 to 8 hours. The audiobook is a little over 7 hours. So, all right. What about some of the book reviews on here, Jay?
Book reviews on this book. Well, let's just put it this way. It's like the classic book on how to make and maintain friendships.
Right.
It goes back further than any other modern book, quote unquote modern book. I mean, there's certainly philosophical material going all the way back to Greece, to Grecian times, and even prior to that with Confucius. But in modern times, this is like the volume on that. Published in 1936, right now on Amazon, 16,192 ratings. And interestingly enough, this is as of today's date. We're at the 19th of February here, 2020. It is number 15 on the overall Amazon charts. Right.
Wow. Yeah, so it's significant, right?
Significant. And then overall, number 16 Amazon self-help, number 38 business and money, number 29 health, fitness and dieting somehow.
Yeah, well, I think maybe
know.
health, you're looking at maybe mental health or something. That's the only thing I could think of, or just
just read this book for everything. Yeah. Self-help, business, money, friendships, health, fitness, dieting, fix your credit. It's take over a small country. Well, it's an incredible book.
Fix your tires. I don't know, whatever. You have a flat in your tire. It'll tell you how to. No, so let's talk a little bit about this. So I don't have much of a perspective on how I got to this book. I remember it, I came about it from you. So you're the one who introduced me to this book, and I don't think you, if I'm remembering correctly, I don't think you just introduced the book to me like, oh, you got to read this book or whatever. You had like a picture and or a quote up in your house. And I remember seeing that and asking you about it.
Okay.
So, and I think that's how I came about. And this would have been, I don't know, probably 5-6 years ago.
Okay. This is one of my library books for sure. I don't have a lot of books in my library just because I read books and then I give them away. Or
that's the best way to do it.
Which is a great way to do it, right? You share it, you appreciate it, and then you don't need to keep 4,000 books with you, especially when you move as much as I've moved recently. But this is one of those books that I just always like to have around. I first kind of got into it when I was starting to do self-help for kind of personal reasons back in like my early 20s. Kind of realized that I needed to, in order to get stuff that I didn't have, I needed to go and learn it from somebody. And this was a book that was, even at that point, even before the internet, back in the days when they used to send information back and forth via smoke signals. You remember that?
Yeah, no, that's isn't that how we still do it?
Just we have the internet
that's
now,
true.
But prior to that, and then once the terrorists drop the EMP and send us back to the Stone Age again, we'll have that. But it was even then considered, if you talk to anybody who had a library of self-help or wanted to give you skills to improve your capacity, that was one of the ones even 25 years ago. And it's and I mean, it's shocking to me just to see that this week it's number 15 on Amazon. So it's like no less valuable now than it maybe even more valuable now than it ever was.
Absolutely. No, and like you said, it defined and created the genre. So All right, give us a little bit of info on Mr. Carnegie.
Mr. Carnegie had a real interesting life and started from, just like bare bones, like born on a farm in Maryville, Missouri in 1888, little tiny town in Missouri. And grew up. He was noted for saying he used to wake up at 3 a.m. to milk the cows and feed pigs and then walk to school, which, I assumed everybody did at that point.
I think that was just life.
That was just normal life. But he grew up in that kind of very, very rural, very kind of borderline poor system. But he was always precocious, enjoyed public speaking. How many people can say that? He enjoyed it, looked for opportunities to do it, was on the debate team in high school, did well there. And after college, he put his skills speaking to people and turned it into a job, became a correspondence course salesman to ranchers, and as well as sold bacon and soap and lard to the ranchers and to the community. Found that it wasn't really his cup of tea, and saw a need to help other people become versed at public speaking, which is a need that still exists, certainly. And he found that people, no matter how scared you are speaking publicly, if you get angry enough, anybody will just talk, and it's totally true. Like, I don't care what you are, you have at least one subject, if you think about it, that you are so passionate about because everybody else is so stupid about it that you need to tell them what's going to the truth. And Carnegie noticed this. He's like, this is really fascinating. Let's use this. He started to create a series of classes, and his self-confidence classes taught at his local YMCA started small and continued to expand, and within a couple of years he was making $500 a week for those classes, which not too much in today's money, but back then it was equivalent to $13,400 a week.
Yeah, that's decent. That would be. I'll take that.
So it's not bad. No. Not bad. I mean,
in today's money,
not bad.
Yeah, that's
not bad for any kind of job. But I mean, seriously, a public speaking class that's netting you $50,000 a month, dude. Well done.
Right.
He wrote hundreds of essays, several books, including The Art of Public Speaking, How to Stop Worrying and Start Living, Lincoln, The Unknown, and then, of course, the classic, How to Win Friends and Influence People. That one was published in 1936 and became an immediate bestseller. By the time of his death, 20 years later, it had sold over 5 million copies and was translated into 31 languages, and that's without the internet. This is 1936, right. And it still sold 5 million copies.
So let's talk a little bit about what's in the book.
What's in this book?
There's some stuff. So there's really 4 main parts, but really what he dives into is really your relationships with people and how to improve what those relationships are. And by improving what your relationships are with other people, you're going to get all the things that you want. And he talks about visualization and figuring stuff out, and isn't one of them like self mantra, like that? There's a whole bunch of really cool stuff, but there's he's got one thing with like basically 6 ways to make people like you. You become genuinely interested in other people. Smile. Remember somebody's name. Be a good listener. Encourage others to talk about themselves. That's always a big one. Talk in terms of the other person's interests and make the other person feel important, and do it sincerely. Doing that, if you just think about that, if you had when was the last time somebody actually listened to you? When you're having a conversation. I love seeing it with my children, because they're a great example of, they get a thought in their head and somebody else is talking and they're just waiting for that other person to stop talking so that they can spew out what information they have in their head. And it's a powerful idea to have. If you had somebody who's just like, they're truly and genuinely listening to you, you're going to be like, wow, I really like this person.
Right.
And
right.
You think it's like a manipulation point, but it's not. It's because that's how we're all wired. And especially I'm sure it was rare, 90 years ago. It was rare 900 years ago. It's rare today. It's just the way that things are. So the other thing, again, the 5 parts, right? So, when you're handling people, if you want to gather honey, don't kick over the beehive, right? It's always use sugar, use a carrot rather than the stick. I always talk about that with my wife, with our kids. What's the carrot? What's the stick? And 6 ways to make people like you. Do this and you'll be welcome anywhere. Part 3, how to win people over to your way of thinking. And basically it is, if you're having an argument, you're not going to win. Because you're not going to win them over. They may just go fine, but they're not going to go with you. And then also how to be a leader, how to change people without giving offense or arousing resentment. But that's sort of an older way of talking. But anyway, all right. So that's what we got here. Let's talk. Let's talk about some of our impressions of this. So, Mr. J. What did you like best about this book?
There's a lot of things to like about this book, but I think the one thing that I like is that I kind of feel like this book is like maybe the great-grandfather of the Matrix, in a way.
Okay.
In a way. Because it doesn't look at people as like wonderful people, like that they're always positive and good and generally optimistic. And it's not, pessimistic about humanity. It's not like people suck and people are always, trying to get ahead and they'll stomp on anybody to get what they want and all that. It's more that human beings we have needs and we're flawed.
Yep.
And so we're self-centered.
More realistic.
Very realistic. We're self-centered and we're vulnerable and we're highly emotional rather than logical. We crave sympathy. We crave praise. We want to be understood and appreciated, and we often are not. And it's these gaps in our in people's understanding of what humans are and kind of their lack of kind of realizing that everybody has these needs and these cravings that are often being unfulfilled on a daily basis. When you can tap into that, it's suddenly like the whole world is different. You're like, oh, this person has a need. I can fulfill that need. I can praise them. I can find a good thing about them. And suddenly, wow, they used to didn't like me at all. And now, now every time I see them, they're in such a great mood because I'm there.
Well, there's something fulfilling about that, about something you gain selfishly from making other people feel good or whatever. Like you can gain something.
That's true.
So yeah, no, that's good.
100%.
All right, give me a quote or 2 or 12.
Yeah, so many good quotes. I like this one. It says, "There's magic, positive magic, in such phrases as, I may be wrong. I frequently am. Let's examine the facts."
Yeah.
So again, coming back to this concept of human beings are often fallible, and you can own that fallibility and go, guess what? I'm not perfect. Oftentimes I have trouble. Let's dive into this, and I will admit that I don't have all the information. And that just opened people up. Anytime somebody will say that, be like, I'm angry, upset, and this, and this, and they're like, you know what? You probably have a really good point here. I don't know exactly what's going on, or I often make mistakes myself. Let's look at it. Let's dive into it because I really want to hear it coming from. Suddenly, magic happens as a result. And then the other one that I really, really like is talk to people about themselves, and they will listen for hours.
Yes, that's such a good one.
It's not actually from Carnegie. It's a quote by Benjamin Disraeli, but it's so good.
But it encompasses the ideas in this book. So yeah,
absolutely.
So what did you learn from this book, or how did it change you? I feel like I have multiple changes as I read through it multiple times, but I think one of the big ones is that shows me that other people are like me, and that I love being praised. I don't like being criticized,
And when people don't criticize me and they find a way to at least lift me up a little bit, I'm so much more inclined to do that. And it's like, everyone's like this. Everybody's like that. And I think that really helped me to start realizing how to interact with people in a much more effective way.
Well, the more you think you're an individual, the more you realize that you're very similar to many other people. So, all right, critique. What'd you like the least?
I feel like it was a little bit, and maybe this is all of the crappy TV that I watched, but I feel like it was a little bit dry. Could use just it was very straightforward, very functional, very logical. It made a lot of sense. Good examples, like this is how you do it. Great, but I'd like maybe a little bit more intrigue. Maybe a plot twist or something like that. But just a little bit more color.
Okay.
For my taste. Yeah.
Yeah.
But for what it is, understandable.
What about any questions for the author?
One question I really have that I'd like to ask Carnegie, going to be a bit challenging to ask him, but How to Win Friends and Influence People was published when he was almost 50.
Wow.
And that was his real success. Obviously, he's making $50,000 a month.
Yeah, that's terrible.
Early 20s, yeah. So he's not suffering financially. But this was the book. This is the Game of Thrones for George R.R. Martin. Everybody knows Martin. Most people have no idea how many other books he's written besides Game of Thrones. So
he's written other books.
What was it like?
Anyway, yeah, no, I think that's good. And then
I'd like to know that.
All right. And related and connected books.
There's two. One of the ones is one we already covered, the Never Split the Difference.
Yeah.
It feels very similar to this one in the way that it's about understanding the other person's point of view and tapping into that to get what you want. And then 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey. Also wonderful. More of a using the principles in here and then it kind of expanding it out and your interactions with other people and the networking part of it in particular.
Yep. Good.
All right. Your turn, Mr. Matthew.
Right.
What about you? What did you like best about How to Win Friends and Influence
So
People? I
really like books that, even though it reminding yourself of points. So I didn't, like I said, I read this book 5-6 years ago, first time. And so it's not like most of the concepts weren't like mind-blowing to me. It wasn't like, wow, I've never heard this before. But you can see how pervasive his thought was in through everybody else. So it's really nice to see almost like an origin story, because that's sort of what this ends up being. And then also it's nice to see positive ways of thinking and non-manipulative ways of, it's like, look, this is what we're trying to do is just you're trying to build yourself up, you're trying to build other people up, and instead of smashing somebody else down to make yourself appear to be higher, you are bringing everybody up at the same time, which
is a tremendous skill, like the win-win.
Yep.
Concept. Yep. And that's a huge deal, and really one of the underpinnings of this book.
Absolutely.
Good stuff. What about a favorite quote or two?
Oh my goodness. So there's several, but you can make more friends in 2 months by becoming interested in other people than you can in 2 years by trying to get other people interested in you. We talk about this all the time as far as male-female dynamics, right? And we always say, like, as a guy, be on a mission and have something to do and blah, 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 blah. But, that's part of how this whole piece works. It's like, look, you're trying to, if you're trying to establish a connection, don't try to mold them into you. Try to be interested in what they're doing as well. So I love that quote. I thought that one was good.
So good.
And then, real short one is, don't be afraid of enemies who attack you. Be afraid of the friends who flatter you. I like that one because you're just like, wait, that's interesting too. Another one that I really like, develop success from failures. Discouragement and failure are two of the surest stepping stones to success. And that is, it's so true. There isn't a person out there who has just achieved success and never had a failure. So that's a great quote. It's one of my favorite quotes on failure and picking yourself back up.
Oh man, so many good things. I really feel like Carnegie, we need to get him on the show.
Yeah. Let's. I swear I need to reach out to his people.
Dale Carnegie, definitely a superior man. Matt, what did you learn from this book, or how did it change you?
I sort of went into it on the last question about what I like about it, but really I like seeing where this all kind of came from, where and really how much of our modern self-help comes from the work of Dale Carnegie. So that's pretty fantastic.
Just seeing the history and kind of the foundation of self-help.
Yes.
Okay. What question would you ask Carnegie?
So I want to know where he came up with all of this. Where did he come up with his ideas? What was his main? I mean,
what was his what were his sources?
Yeah, what were his sources? Right.
Okay. Which is a great question. I mean, back in 1912, 1914, as he's kind of putting stuff together. Because again, 20 years before his success, when he's putting his YMCA stuff, is he just pulling it off the top of his head? Such an interesting question. And finally, any other related connected books you'd recommend?
Every self-help book.
Just kind of narrowing it down there.
No, I mean, it literally is this is something that would be like, well, you created a genre. I mean, honestly, this created that section in Barnes & Noble when you go there. I mean, if this hadn't have been there, I don't know if we'd have all those people you listed, and I don't think we'd have all of this.
It would be a fascinating thing to go back in an alternate history, but I think you're right. So once again, the book is How to Win Friends and Influence People by the incomparable Dale Carnegie. Thank you for listening to the show, and on behalf of Matt, we will see you folks next time.
A reader lives 1,000 lives before he dies. The man who never reads lives only one. Thank you for listening to the Superior Men Bookcast. Share it with a friend. You heard our thoughts. Go read it for yourself.